Hey guys, my second recommended book is one that I don't think you should buy straight away. It's a collection of tips and tricks that Tim Ferriss has gathered from interviewing around 200 high-profile guests on his podcast, and the book itself is called Tools of Titans. It falls into the category of self-improvement, and to give you an idea, the book is broken down into three main sections: healthy, wealthy, and wise. Each chapter is a different podcast guest, and he mentions a few key takeaways from their conversation, as well as recommendations they have, like favourite books or films. You might know Tim Ferriss from the 4-Hour Workweek. He also wrote the 4-Hour Body, and he has a very successful podcast. My recommendation is to start with the podcast. It's called The Tim Ferriss Show. I get it from the Podcast Addict app, but you can also get it off iTunes. I suggest you start with episode 1 and initially don't skip any. It's a really nice format and it's not clear what you're going to get from each interview, so it's best to listen to everyone at first before being picky. Depending on your personal interest, you're going to take different things from different interviews. I do recommend the book, but having made notes directly from the podcast, I noticed that some of the most interesting things I'd written down weren't covered in the book. They were very specific to me, and what he's doing with the book is appealing to the greatest number of people. So what's the most interesting to you may not be in the book. They are long-form interviews, meaning around 1.5 to 2 hours per episode. I normally save these up for when I'm commuting or if I'm in the gym, because it's making better use of my time when I'm already doing something else. As with book 1, I'll give you 3 bullet points from the book. There's a lot of entrepreneurial stuff in there, and one thing that stuck with me was from the creator of Dilbert, a popular comic strip. It's one example of something I might have missed if I was being overly selective with what I was going to listen to. He said to combine 2 skills that you're in the top 25% for to be successful. He used himself as an example, so he's got a pretty good sense of humour and he's a good artist. He's not in the top 1% for either skill. So he's not funny enough to be a stand-up comedian or comedy writer, and he's nothing special as an outright artist. However, when he puts the 2 skills together, he creates a sort of double threat, as well as a category where there's much less competition. I like this idea, and it ties in well with the entrepreneurial advice that if you can't be first in a category, set up a new category that you can be first in. The second point comes under health, and it's that a good rule of thumb is that you age at the rate you produce insulin. Insulin is released when you eat carbohydrate or a large dose of protein, and constantly eating sugary foods is going to create these insulin spikes that could prematurely age you. There's a lot in the book about anti-aging and life extension, and one of the doctors he interviewed recommended requesting your HbA1c when you get a blood test. It's seen as a sort of rolling average of the last 3 months of your insulin levels, and it's a good reflection of the quality of your diet. If you're eating sugary foods and snacking all day, then it's possible your biological age, as in the age of your body, is actually much older than your chronological age, which is your actual years since birth. So you could be 35 years old with the body of a 45-year-old. The last one is a quote from Derek Sivers, and he says, "The standard pace is for chumps. You can pass a 4-year degree in 2 years. The curriculum has to be set for the lowest common denominator, and you're smarter than that." This is very true. I have several friends who dropped out of university only to find that their entry-level job offered the same qualifications but faster. So not only are you then being paid to learn on the job, you're learning practical skills at the same time, and you're done in a shorter time period, so you're further up the career ladder. If you have a higher drive and determination for learning than most people do, then find the most efficient way of doing it. One last bit, should you not have time for the hundreds of hours of podcasts, here's the top 10. This is based on appealing to the most people, and it's highly likely there's a podcast not in the top 10 that you will love. For example, as someone into strength and nutrition, I took loads of notes from Gymnastic Strength, Charles Poliquin, and Dom D'Agostino, who's highly involved in the research for ketosis and the ketogenic diet. I did make notes on my site at 9to5strength.com/books, but since Tools of Titan itself is made up of notes, it's quite hard to condense that further. Some of the information I bookmarked includes flexibility and mobility exercises, meditation, productivity tips, and the ketosis information from Dom D'Agostino. So if you're interested in health, wealth, and being more wisdomous, then check it out. Cheers.